During this series of broadcasts, some of my audience who are nervously ill have possibly been trying to practice what I have advised, and by now may have met many setbacks, and so may have questions to ask. In this, my last talk, I will answer what I am sure are some of their questions. When I speak of setbacks, I don't mean that all nervously ill people must have setbacks before they can recover. Some people, when they hear a satisfactory explanation of their illness, lose all fear of it and recover remarkably quickly. But others find the way to recovery difficult and long. These are the people with questions to ask. Most nervously ill people are surprised to hear that they can make as much progress toward recovery in a setback as they can in a good spell. In a good period, they certainly gather hope, may even become exhilarated, and think they've found the magic wand at last. And so they have. But usually at the back of their mind lurks the thought, what if it were to come back again? And of course, sensitization, not yet completely healed, together with memory, will certainly do its best to see that it returns from time to time. Memory is always ready to waylay at every turn in the road. The sufferer has seen that street, those houses, those shops so often, the very sight of them wearies and spells illness. And when memory strikes, each frightening experience, each frightening sensation that memory recalls may bring such intense suffering, its victim can so easily be duped into mistaking memory for reality, so easily duped into thinking that he has slipped to the bottom of the ladder once more. The contrast between the hope and peace just experienced in a good spell and the renewed suffering felt in setback highlights the suffering and makes it seem more unendurable than ever. It is this contrast that may make the early setbacks seem so especially severe and bring such disappointment, such despair, that the sufferer may decide that the struggle to recovery is beyond him. It seems as if something is always ready to drag him back whenever he tries to go forward. It is hard for him to understand how it is possible to feel so desperate so suddenly, when but a few hours earlier he may have been feeling so well, so optimistic. Sudden changes of mood can be so baffling to the nervously ill person. He usually thinks that as he recovers, setbacks, if they occur, will be less and less severe, occur less and less often, and so they might. But as I've just explained, they can just as well seem worse than ever. Indeed, the worst setback of all may come just before complete recovery, simply because recovery is so close. The very closeness of recovery makes any setback at that time especially frustrating. This is why a person trying to recover should understand the tricks memory can play, and so understand setbacks so well that he's not discouraged by them, however long they may last or whenever they may come. He must learn to appreciate the difference between memory and reality. He must understand that it is memory that slips right back, not he. And he must be prepared to let memory slip back as far as it wants to, and not withdraw from it in fear. He must accept all his memories of past suffering, accept all the feelings of apprehension and dread that they bring. But he must realize while doing this that they are only memories, only thoughts, and that he need not be bluffed by a thought, need not be dragged back by thought, however painful it may seem. As acceptance heals sensitization, feeling will not follow thought so swiftly, so intensely, and the sufferer will at last be able to reason less emotionally, even reason with fear. In this way, he will rise above fear. Confidence comes only with experience, and the best experiences lie in coming through setbacks, because each setback gives yet another chance to practice again and again what I have been teaching, until the person recovering makes this teaching part of himself, makes it so inbuilt that his reactions in any future disturbing situation will not be the old frightening flashback reactions, but will gradually be the right ones, will be reactions without so much fear. He will know the way out of setbacks so well, he will no longer fear the way in. But this takes time. Therefore, he must not begrudge and count each day, each week spent in a setback. He must not think, oh my goodness, this one's lasted a fortnight. This is worse than the last. I must be getting worse. I'll never get out of this one. If a particular setback is distressingly long, I am sure that the nervously ill person will find that he's waiting too anxiously for it to go, that he's withdrawing from it in fear, or is impatiently trying to break his way through it, trying to fight it. He must give as much time to coming through each setback as it demands, and its demands depend very much on his mistakes. I am often asked why a nervously ill person during recovery can feel so well one day and then, for no apparent reason, feel so ill the next. For example, why he can travel into town without fear one day, and yet the next day, for no reason he can discover, feel the old fears so acutely it is as if the good journey had never been made. Strangely enough, it is because yesterday's journey was so successful that he is vulnerable to defeat today. The memory of yesterday's success may make him just a little too anxious to do as well again. So he may start that journey into town apprehensively, therefore slightly more sensitized than he was yesterday, so that it may take only some minor incident on the way into town to make him flash panic immediately. And as soon as he panics, he's convinced that the journey today will be a failure. So he despairs. And such acute emotion as despair sensitizes him still further, and so makes him even more apprehensive, more vulnerable to that little voice within him that is always ready to suggest defeat. He is making the mistake of testing himself. He should practice, not test. He should not set an examination for himself to see if he can travel without panic. If he has panic after panic, but tries to take the panic the right way, the journey made with panic is just as successful as a journey made without panic. Also, when he tests himself, failure brings a sense of defeat, whereas if he practices, failure simply means that he can practice once again. Can you see the difference between testing and practicing? The very thought of testing brings tension, whereas the thought of practicing holds no urgent demand and therefore brings much less tension. And when he returns home, even after practicing successfully the right way, he may feel unusually tired and nervier than ever, and this may puzzle him. But it's not so difficult to understand. While he stayed at home and avoided situations in which he thought he might panic, he could perhaps go weeks without panicking. But when he goes out now, ready to face and accept, he is willingly putting himself in the front line of battle, and for the time being may feel plenty of panic. And this is why, during early recovery, he may feel nervier, more tired than ever. Also, the early stages of recovery may seem unreal. Doing the unusual, although it be no more than boarding a bus alone, may seem to him very unreal, so that in the beginning, even when successful, there may be no satisfactory feeling of achievement, only a feeling of strangeness. Indeed, one's illness may seem safer, more real, than the early stages of recovery. So that journey into town may have to be done successfully many times before it is accompanied by any real sense of achievement. Achievement must be consolidated before the traveller will feel he has firm ground beneath his feet from which to face the future and the demands that recovery may bring. He imagines himself trying to meet these demands as he feels now, still ill. He doesn't understand that recovery brings its own change, that it brings renewed strength, renewed interest, and that with this comes ability to cope. He must go forward with trust in this change, trust in a gradual merging into normal living once more. It is the gradualness that makes all possible, but it is also this very gradualness that is so hard for the nervously ill person to appreciate, because it is so frustrating. Also, gradualness calls for contemplation, and contemplation is the killer. Only memory of sufficient achievement can take the fear out of contemplation. This is why time must be allowed to pass. Imagination has flashed so many pictures of the difficulties in the way of recovery so often and over such a long time. These difficulties have come to seem so concrete, they cannot be talked away. The tension that comes at thought of them can only be eased away by gradually replacing these thoughts with the memory of sufficient successful achievement. Salvation lies in repeated action, in doing, until thinking about doing loses its power to frighten. And when the nervously ill person fails, he should try to discover where he went wrong. When he reviews the situation, I'm sure he will find that he did rush headlong, trying to return back quickly to the safety of home, that he did withdraw in fear, did try to sit on panic, did add too much second fear, or that he was tired with so much trying, he became sensitized again and then frightened by the intensity of his feelings just when he thought he was doing so well. Or that he listened to that little voice, always ready to discourage him, the little voice that says, you haven't got what it takes to succeed. Don't be bluffed by that little voice. It speaks in vain to so many. He will succeed when he learns to accept everything about his illness and not waste time trying to work it all out. He must not be dismayed by setback, not be bluffed by memory, not be perplexed because he's well one day and ill the next, not be dismayed when achievement seems unreal, not be overawed by contemplation, not be afraid that he will lose what he gained yesterday if he does not practice today, and he must practice, not test. I know that you, who are nervously ill and listening to these talks, probably think that there is so much to do, so much to remember. There isn't, you know. It's all in one little word, accept. It won't matter if you forget the rest, as long as you remember that one little word, accept. I make it sound so easy, don't I? It's not easy. But if you are determined to practice utter